Hello, my friend. Welcome to episode 2. This is the second episode in this long format series that I'm doing, which is effectively going to become a podcast and longer videos that I put on YouTube. And then that content becomes shorts that I chop up for Instagram Reels, for YouTube Shorts, and for TikTok videos as well. What I've been doing for a long time is sharing tips and tricks that work for any platform. But what I've realized more recently is a lot of people have been watching videos that I've done that actually explain specific things that you do inside the app. One of my most successful videos is a tutorial that I did, which just teaches you how to trim the front of a clip in TikTok. Now, I was sitting in bed one morning and someone asked me in a DM, how do I trim the front of a video in TikTok so it starts immediately and I don't have this pause? People were trying to work out how to delete the millennial pause so the audio started straight away, which is a really important way to hook your viewer in. And so I started typing out this response to someone, and then I thought, why don't I just record a video that actually explains this thing, and then I can send the video to that person, and then at least more people can watch it. And that's the key lesson that I have about social media and about content creation with video, is that you've got a piece of advice that you can share with one person, one at a time. This could be a person that you work with, this is a friend, this could even be your boss, where you tell them about a piece of expertise that you have or a piece of advice. Now, the problem is that doesn't scale. But if you record that content and share it online, it scales hugely. And this goes back all the way back to when I started first creating content. A friend of mine wanted to know how to do YouTube videos, YouTube vlogs. And I said, I will teach you how to do this. I'll explain to you. I'll come over to your house. I'll explain it to you for like half an hour. But I want you to record me the entire time explaining to you how to do it. And so I brought all my equipment over and I literally just set up everything and explained to him for half an hour how to set up lighting, how to set up the tripod, how to connect the connector on the bottom of the tripod, the adapter so you could put your camera on top of the tripod, where to position the lights, why you'd bounce them off the wall, the differences between color temperature of indoor and outdoor lighting. I explained all that stuff for half an hour to him. And then because I was able to edit that footage, I put that online, and that's probably my most successful YouTube video. It's only got like 25,000 views, but 25,000 people watched a video of me explaining how to make a vlog, because at the time, that was something that was quite engaging. So instead of me having this one session where I'd spent half an hour of my life explaining to a friend how to make a vlog on YouTube, I recorded that content at the same time because I asked him to, and then I was able to share that and so it could scale. And the same is true for the piece of advice I was giving this individual person about how to trim the front of a clip, because I turned that into a tutorial that was available online. 1,000 people a week still watch that video. It's got 127,000 views as of this week, and reliably, every single week it gets 1,000 views. Now, the key thing that I'm trying to explain to you, as well as anyone else that I come into contact with in terms of content, is that what can you do with 1,000 views per week? If you're trying to get attention for your personal brand or your business, you can do a lot with 1,000 views every single week. You just have to create content that actually is useful for people. Now, the content that you create will be useful for different reasons. Sometimes you have content that's really crafted and you literally say, save this video for later because you want to refer back to it, because you've got a really useful tip that people want to keep in their sort of library of tips. And sometimes people will actually send this to other people that they know because a friend is actually having that same sort of challenge. Sometimes we share content that's just sort of entertaining. It's a fun story. And those aren't necessarily as useful as these videos that have really high utility because I'm actually solving a problem for you. And this brings me to a really good point about if you were trying to start a business or if you were trying to explain what you do to an audience. And this brings me to a really important point about if you are running a business or creating any kind of project, you really have to define, are you solving a problem for people or are you just expressing yourself? Lots of times when people want to start an e-commerce business or if they just want to do something and make money, they're really thinking about themselves first, and they think about what's something I can do to save money. The best businesses in the world have a really clear definition of the value they provide to a customer, but this usually comes from a place of a problem that someone's experiencing. Now, Apple has a really simple problem they solve because they just give you a smartphone. But the problem they solved initially was the fact that phones weren't really that smart. They just did one thing. So they gave you a much, much better phone that was comprehensively more technically capable and gave you all these different functions in one. The thing they solved was making a phone smart, making it really convenient, making it easy to use. So easy to use that it didn't even require an instruction manual when you open the box. It's just simple and intuitive to use. Now, you can create a service or a product that is intuitive to use, but it really still has to come down to their problem that that person is facing. I see this happen all the time with e-commerce businesses where it's just this product that someone realizes they can sell and they think they can make money, but they haven't clearly identified the problem they are solving by offering this to a customer. And this comes down to the idea of the core human motivations that you have. If you look at health, wealth, and relationships, these are the three key problems that people have in their lives that they will pay money to solve. So I'm going to talk about these motivations in a second, but I just want to make this point really clear. If you are struggling with getting your e-commerce business off the ground, or the business that you are trying to run in any form, including in-person, a physical bricks and mortar business, or an online business that you run, or simply a service that you want to offer, you really have to clearly define what's the problem you're solving for a person and what is the customer persona of the ideal person who has this problem. If you can identify that, then you can create content that actually explains to those people. Now, the people that I'm trying to help through the content that I'm making are people who want to build a personal brand, or people who have a product or a service and they're trying to promote it and communicate it to an audience. You can do these things through paid advertising, or you can do them through organic content. So the problem that I am trying to solve is to help people get better at creating content that they can share organically to be discovered. So you want to be discovered because you want to be, for example, a UGC creator, or you want to build your personal brand so you can be an influencer, or you want to have more sales and more attention for the business or the service that you offer to people. The thing that I'm trying to solve for people like you is helping you get clarity and confidence about the type of content you share and the kind of content that's most engaging to people. But more than that, I really want to help give you confidence about how to share and how to turn up on video. The thing that I learned a long time ago was people keep telling me I was good at speaking, they liked the way my voice sounded, and that I was good at explaining things. I still don't like the way that my voice sounds. I still don't really like looking at myself on video, but I've started to become more used to it simply because the more content that I create and the more I realize that I get these occasional wins where someone finds the content that I've made useful, I start to get used to the idea that my content is valuable and my advice is actually valuable to an audience. And the example that I used earlier of that video clip where I just explained how to trim the front of a video clip in TikTok, I was just lying in bed. The audio sounds terrible. It literally sounds like this. To trim the front off a clip in TikTok, you just bring the clip in. It's terrible. Like, I think it's a terrible video. But people keep convincing me that it's not, because the actual thing that I'm explaining in that video is so useful to people. They keep coming back and watching it and saving it and sharing it. And TikTok keeps showing it to people. So the algorithm keeps showing it to people because that's a useful piece of content. So the key thing that I've got to explain to you is whatever your business or service or personal brand is, you have to focus on the problems that people are having and give them solutions to that. Give them things they can use that are tools and tips and techniques so they will save that content. That's the content that the algorithm will keep showing to people over time. Now, on different platforms, this is slightly different. YouTube Shorts tends to be more towards entertainment, and TikTok was for a long time as well, because it was lip syncing and gags and jokes and stunts and all these different things that were popular as entertainment. And then a smaller portion of that content is business-related content, motivational, things you can do with your life, different kind of mindset things, which are all fantastic. And I actually find that one of the really quick, easy pieces of content that I often make is around sort of motivation and mindset and mindfulness. And I might just put a piece of content up, which I call scenic content, and I put some text on screen, like a nice quote, and it's just a really beautiful background and some nice music. And that gets like 5,000 to 7,000 views every single time. And so I make sure I continue to share content like that because it helps boost the amount of views that my account is getting. But also it's just really enjoyable to get those wins where you feel like your content's actually working. So if you are struggling to get the kind of views that you want and the engagement that you want on your content, make sure you mix it up occasionally. Don't just make content that looks exactly the same. Now, this is the challenge that I've got at the moment, because this podcast format that I'm doing, where I'm speaking to camera for like 35 or 40 minutes and then chopping it up into smaller videos, it all looks the same. But that's because I'm in one place and I've got this consistent environment to shoot footage. And you'll want to do this too if you want to create a lot of footage, because out of this 35 or 40 minutes, I can get dozens of different clips that I can use over the next few weeks. Now, for when you're creating content, you'll want to be able to do this so you have a larger block of content to use, but then you'll actually want to go back and have different kinds of things that you put into the feed. So this might be things like vlog content, where you literally just talk about your day. What does a day in the life look like for the sort of lifestyle that you lead? Are you a digital nomad? Are you running your own business? Do you work in corporate? Are you an influencer? Are you creating UGC? All these different things are useful and interesting information for other people, because the key piece of advice that I got that I think is fantastic is the things that are boring to you are fascinating to someone else. The everyday things that you experience, that you come into contact with, and that you deal with as problems for yourself, or just the standard way that you live your life, is fascinating for other people. Right now, I happen to be working remotely in China. So what my day looks like and the kind of transportation I use, or the food that I eat, or the different locations that I go are fascinating for someone who's never been to China before, or someone who's been to China before and they're interested in China or be interested about where I happen to be. And so the things that are sort of quite benign and everyday and just normal for me, that I've been here a few times, this is my 16th trip to China, so it doesn't seem that exciting or interesting to me anymore, but other people will find it fascinating. But also I had to make a decision a while ago that China wasn't the key kind of content that I wanted to focus on, because I needed a wider kind of funnel. So if I rewind all the way back to the kind of content that I started making, is I was traveling to China on a regular basis for these business delegations that I was organizing. And so while I was on the ground in China, I started recording content about what the shopping malls look like and what the economic environment was like and what were some of the big industries that were growing. And I went to a couple of factories and I went to distribution centers, and I was talking about the manufacturing and the scale end of the fact that we already knew all of our products that we were using and buying were made in China. So what did that look like when you actually go there and experience it for real? And we know that products are made all over the world, but this just happened to be the largest market where products are made. So I was personally fascinated about coming here. And of course, I studied design, so I wanted to understand how products were made, how they went through that process of getting developed, so I could better understand that entire value chain of coming up with the concept for a product, designing it, manufacturing it, getting the samples, and then sending them overseas and starting to find an audience to sell that product to. But of course, that comes all the way back to my original point that, are you solving a big enough problem that people are prepared to give you their money? And also the thing that I noticed is, because this content was very niche around China and doing business in China and import-export, I only had an audience of probably a few thousand people who genuinely found that stuff interesting, who were actually coming to China on a regular basis. And I wasn't being like a travel blogger where I was telling you how to get the best deals or the hotels to travel to or the cool tourist spots to go to. So that wasn't content that I was making. I was literally talking about business, logistics, shopping malls, retail brands, where you could find different kinds of wine in China that were from different countries that I'd worked in, like New Zealand and Australia. I was interested about supporting these brands on the ground in China. And that for a long time has been the sort of work that I've done, is working with brands from overseas and helping them to be successful in what is the biggest consumer market in the world. But over time, I realized that was quite niche content that wasn't interesting for everyone. So what I had to do was switch my whole angle around a little bit to talk more broadly about content and about creation and about running a business and starting a business, and the mindset that you need to switch from having a full-time job to actually starting your own business and actually backing yourself to work on something for yourself. So that was the process that I went through, from finding something that I was very passionate about and working on a regular basis, which was this China business side, and then moving that and changing that around to be a lot more broad. So if you look on my YouTube channel, the earlier content that I have is talking about these really interesting things that I found that were interesting in China. But the thing that I found was the most popular video that I had was telling people how to create a vlog, basically the equipment that you needed, the setup that you need, the lighting that you need, how to set up the tripod and how to connect the camera on the top of the tripod. That had 25 or 30,000 views. And so that told me that the content that people wanted to see from me was explainers, where I was explaining how something worked rather than this niche content about the economics of a place like China. People wanted to see me explain how to use camera equipment and vlog equipment and basically do all the stuff with different content platforms. So now I've kind of understood that that's really important. And so a lot of the content I'm going to be focusing on now is these little tips and tricks, which actually are quite savable. All the different functions that you have inside TikTok, which are difficult to use, the different functions you have inside the YouTube Shorts app, the different functions you have inside the Instagram Reel app. Basically, when you're going through the process of creating Instagram Reel, those functions keep changing all the time. And for people who are kind of finding it quite fiddly and frustrating to use these apps, that's where I want to try to make it easier for people. And I also came from a background of using a desktop computer, a laptop all the time to do design, animation, video. So I was used to using a keyboard and a mouse and controlling a piece of software with these external controls. I've still found it very difficult to get used to just using my thumbs to edit a video and, manipulate the timeline and zoom in and position a graphic and all these really fiddly things that are quite difficult to do on your phone. But for a lot of people who only use their phone to manipulate these kinds of software, that's the only experience they've ever had to do those things. At work, they might use email, they'll use a spreadsheet, they'll do some Word documents, they might do a PowerPoint presentation. And that's the key tools that they use. And of course, if they're making something like a PowerPoint presentation, they're using a mouse to like position graphics and position things on screen. They're not using their phone and basically trying to make a PowerPoint presentation inside their phone. Even though you actually can, it's very fiddly to do that. So a lot of people have been using content creation tools for the first time only inside their smartphone. It's really fiddly to try to get a really good result. I basically accepted the fact that so many people are using their phone to do these things that I need to explain how it's actually done using software that's on your phone. So that's things like using CapCut or using the TikTok functions or using the functions that are inside the YouTube app and inside the Instagram app for when you actually want to create content. And the next stage of doing that is actually looking at these repurposing tools or these distribution tools that allow you to take one video and send it to multiple different platforms. So one of the tools I've been using for a while is Repurpose.io, but I'm also now using Opus Pro. If you have a lot of video content you've produced, one of the coolest things that you can do is actually use these online tools to identify the right part of a video that you can actually share as shorter videos. It uses all these fancy AI algorithms to identify the most interesting part of what you've been talking about, and then it sort of identifies that as a piece of content, and then it adds some captions just for that piece of video, and you can go through and decide to download those. So that's what I've been using Opus Pro for. But once you've actually got a completed video, and then you can post it to, say, one platform, for example, TikTok, you can then take that piece of content and then distribute it to other platforms. So that's what I've been using Repurpose.io for. The only thing that I've noticed, though, is it doesn't work perfectly all the time. There's still like a lot of maintenance and checking to go through to make sure things are working. And I've been using a process where I've actually been uploading content into a Google Drive, and it sends that content to a Facebook page, to an Instagram Reel, and also to a YouTube Short. So the journey that I've gone through is from having this really niche content around doing business in China to this more wider net of content for content creators and content for business owners. Now, there's a lot of other people out there creating the same kind of content, and that's okay, because the thing that I've realized over time is the particular voice that you have, the particular point of view that you have, the way that you explain things is unique and it's engaging, and this is something that people engage with you for. And the way that I would explain it is like this. When you go for a job interview, there are other candidates for that job. And the employer, the manager who's interviewing you, has all these different candidates, and they eventually pick their favorite one that they actually want to work with. But all of those candidates that were selected to potentially work in that job probably could have performed the job to the same level. And that's the same principle of creating content online. There are lots of different creators out there. There's lots of different businesses. There's lots of different services out there that actually provide a similar solution to people's problems. But you can be popular and you can be engaging with an audience that just happens to like you for who you are. And so that's the reason that I keep doing this, that there is an audience for me. There's people that like the content that I share. There's people that think that I'm interesting. And oftentimes, those are people from all over different parts of the world. They're people from the UK or Canada or South Africa or Nigeria, all different parts of the world. And when I first started doing content, I thought I had to have an American accent. I thought the only way that I could get a large audience was if I looked like an American and sounded like an American and moved to California. And then over time, I realized I didn't have to do that at all. I'm fine just the way that I am, and I'm engaging and interesting to the friends that know me, to the people that know me that work with me, and also to a potential audience. So I really want to make this point very clear to you. You are fine just the way you are. You've been hired before, you've been in relationships before, you've got friends that like you just the way that you are. There isn't anything you have to change about yourself. However, you can maybe polish the way that you present yourself on video a little bit better. Now, I've come a long way from some of the first videos I was uploading, which weren't very polished. I wasn't really making good eye contact with the camera. I wasn't speaking in this really much more engaging way. However, I'm still trying to speak to you exactly the same way that I'd speak to you if I was in person with you. I'm trying to be engaging. I'm trying to have a lot of energy so I don't bore you. I can't waste your time. I need to be engaging and provide value. Because one of my favorite things is talking about job interview energy. When you turn up to a job interview, you are performing as your best, but you are yourself. You're not acting like this completely different person because you're trying to get this job, you're trying to work with people, and you will be the same person when you start that job. Otherwise, if you were completely different, well, they wouldn't keep working with you. So you are just you, but you're kind of you plus. You're kind of you on a little bit more of a high energy curve. And that's what you want to get across to an audience every time you communicate with them. Because if I kind of sit back and I have much lower energy and I'm not really speaking and focusing that much and really being engaging, it completely loses all the momentum that I have. So I have to lean forward, lean in, and be engaging, and that's how you grab your audience. Now, you still obviously have to have a bit of a hook or something you're actually going to share with them that's useful, but the point is the engagement that you have and the way that you can communicate with people is a practice. It's a practice that you can use to get better and become more engaging, so you can do this on demand. And it's the same principle as public speaking, that you kind of get up in front of this audience and perform, and you watch the amount of ums and ahs and pauses you have, because you clearly know what you want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about a few more topics now, and I'm just going to check my notes to see what I'm talking about. If you want to be engaging on camera, one of the key ways to do it is to imagine like you're talking to a friend, because this gives you confidence to explain what you're talking about, and you don't really use ums and ahs because you're not too worried about the pacing that you have, because you're literally just explaining to someone you know. And I learned this skill many, many years ago when I was at high school, because I did a sort of summer school program for a radio station because I thought it would be really fun. I thought being on the radio and being a DJ was kind of a cool job. And so I went along to this thing for probably about 5 or 6 weeks, just one day, one night a week. And then the idea was that whoever became the top of the class was offered a job at the radio station. And this was literally the graveyard shift from midnight till 6 in the morning on like a Saturday night to a Sunday morning was the graveyard shift that I was working. So I got top of the class, first equal with this other guy, and we both started basically working at the radio station. And the cool part about going through that process is I sort of learned how to kind of project my voice and basically control what I was talking about and be more focused about delivering and being engaging and being entertaining. And then I kind of stopped doing it, and I went and studied design, and I kind of worked on these cool projects, and I stopped realizing that my voice was actually a powerful tool. The way that I speak and the way that I communicate is actually quite useful. And so over time, I've realized it's actually probably quite handy for me to get paid to talk, because I'm good at talking and I really enjoy it. And the thing for you, if you're a business owner, if you have a product or service, or you just want to be a creator, if speaking and communicating with people is something that you enjoy and is a strength of yours and something you actually get a lot of enjoyment from, and you actually get engagement with people quite naturally, it's a strength that you should double down on and keep focusing on to get better at. So that's one of the things that I've been using content creation for, is to get better at my communication skills, to be engaging and to explain what I am thinking about and the things that are useful to other people. So if you want to do the same thing, you simply just have to start practicing it more. Record yourself on camera and watch it back. Are you engaging? Is your attention dropping off? Do you want to keep listening to yourself talk about something? And you have to really push through this awkward point at the beginning where you hate the way that you sound, you hate the way that you look. You'll get more used to it over time. But the thing you've got to realize is you just look like you, right? When you turn up to work or when you communicate with your friends, you talk to your family, you look like you look every day right now. You don't have to sugarcoat it. You don't have to dress up completely differently. I occasionally will put a suit on because I think it's a fun costume to have to communicate with. But you are just basically looking like what you look like every day. Get used to sharing and making content that way. But occasionally you can turn up with this job interview energy where you look your best, you're being the most engaging and the most energetic. And that means that people want to work with you. They want to keep actually seeing you turn up on a regular daily basis. That's effectively what you're trying to do when you go for a job interview. You're trying to sell yourself. You're trying to get bought. So the company that you work with basically says, yes, we want to have you turn up every day. They basically want to subscribe to you and pay you to turn up to work every day. And so the principle is the same as a content creator. You want people to follow you and to subscribe to you because you want them to keep coming back for more every single day. And you want to keep turning up and delivering more. And this is one of the hard things about content creation. We don't always feel like we actually want to do it. It is quite exhausting. I don't always want to turn up on camera and actually communicate like this. Sometimes it is really exhausting, but I keep doing it because I have a deeper belief and the idea that people do find the advice that I have valuable. Now, they're not going to find all of the advice that I have valuable. I think here is probably where the 80-20 rule applies for everything. 80% of the content that I make is just filler. It's just stuff, it's just there. It's kind of generally interesting. This might be stuff where I go to a cafe or some random travel content that I share or just something I share about life. But 20% of the content that I make will be excellent and really valuable for people. They'll send it to each other, they'll save it, they'll comment, they'll engage on that content, and that's the good stuff. But I can't find that 20% by myself. The audience tells me what that 20% is. So I have to create 100% of my content, and then people can discover the 20% that they think is the best. And it's the same principle for you. People will only buy 20% of your products. They'll only watch 20% of your content. They'll only read 20% of your blogs. They'll only find value in 20% of the service that you're offering. But you still have these offerings, so it feels like there is a range of things for people to engage with. But people generally will only use 20% of what you're offering. And actually, that's a really similar way to think about it when you go for a job interview. Jobs that you do probably don't take every single one of the skills and experience that you have. There's a portion of the skills and experience that you're offering that's going to get used in the current job that you get offered and the job that you actually do every day. But you still have more skills that you can offer outside of your job. And so this is the coolest part about having a side hustle or having a creative project that you work on, that you get to implement your skills and your passions in different ways. And so the cool thing about creating content on a regular basis is you get to discover the things you're most passionate about and the things that people engage with. But you can't discover those unless you're turning up regularly and actually creating the content and delivering it. For a long time, I created content and I didn't upload it. I still have 40 or 50 videos that I shot where I'm talking to camera for several minutes at a time, and I was too shy to upload them. And I'm really kicking myself now because I realize some people are actually finding the advice that I give and the things that I talk about useful. So I'm embracing that as a creator. And even though I'm a bit older now, I'm still able to actually share what I know. And I feel like this is kind of like a time capsule. Some people will be watching and listening to this content in many years from now. So I feel like I'm putting energy out into the world. I'm sharing the thing that I'm best at, the thing that I'm good at, the thing that I want to get better at and be the best at. And so you can do the same for the product or service that you've created, or just the fact that you want to be a creator and you have a certain interesting point of view. If you keep creating content and you keep showing up, people will discover you and you'll be someone's favorite. You'll be the person that they subscribe to, that they follow, they actually want to hear from on a regular basis. So don't worry about if you don't like the way that you sound, you don't like the way that you look. It's not for you, it's for other people. But the topics you talk about, the things that you are passionate about, they should be for you. If you only talk about stuff that is trending, yes, you can get some views there, but it doesn't really have the same depth as the stuff that's really personal to you that you genuinely care about. And the thing that I genuinely care about is the fact that a lot of people have this creative project they're working on or a business that they've started, and they don't really know how to connect it with an audience. They know how to operate their business, they know how to create this product, but they're not sure about the marketing and the positioning and effectively the public relations kind of organic promotion that you can do for a product or service or even a person to get yourself out there and make yourself discoverable so people understand what you want. Anytime people tell me about their passions, I want to help them sell their passion. My passion is helping other people to sell theirs. I feel like that's my purpose because I'm good at it, but I can't stop talking about it when people tell me about the thing that they do that they've created. I want to know everything about it. I want to know why they started it. I wanted to know how they're putting it all together. So that's exactly what I will be doing with this podcast format, is eventually speaking to people and interviewing them on video so you can see people talk about their passions, their products, the thing that they're working on, and you can see them light up when they talk about it. That's the sort of people I love talking to, and that's the kind of content that I want to share. I want to help people be more discoverable. So in the meantime, the content that I share is going to be around the tips and tricks to do this for yourself, but eventually I'll have more inspiring stories about other people who are doing this, and then you can follow them as well, and you can discover the work that they're doing to promote themselves, and that becomes like the best practice kind of reference that you had is what does best practice look like for sharing content in the particular niche that you're interested in or the particular product or service that they have that's similar to what you're doing. If I cover a whole bunch of different business creators, I should be able to get a few of them that are really relevant to you. So that's really why I'm creating this podcast in the first place, is to have an excuse to talk to people about what their passions are, the businesses they're running, and the creative things that they want to do, and work out the best way to communicate these to audiences so we can all learn along the way about how to get better at doing this. Because the platforms and the channels that we use will keep changing over time. But the thing that you want to create, the business that you want to run, and the problems that people have and their motivations for buying products still stay the same. So all we do is find new techniques and new platforms and new channels to communicate the same stuff that people have always been dealing with. And this is people's motivations for health, wealth, and relationships. These are the key things that motivate people. And that's why they decide to part with their money to solve one of the problems they have relating to health, wealth, or relationships. Everything else is just noise. Those are the only human motivators we have. So I'll go into that a little bit more and explain those in depth in another video. But for the moment, I just wanted to explain to you, this is the reason I'm doing this podcast and turning up on a regular basis and creating this content. I want to get better at creating the content, but I also want to connect with other people who are creating similar kinds of content so we can learn from each other. And the real reason I'm doing this is because when you think about your friend network and how many people you know, how many people do you know that are actually a regular content creator? Someone that is actually sharing content online on a regular basis and talking to camera like I am right now. I guarantee you don't know a single person in person who does this. That's telling you something really important about the world and about the internet. The number of people who have the confidence to turn up online and create content like this is very, very small. Most people in the world, at least 99% of them, are just the audience. They're just observing. And if you have something that you want to tell people about and communicate with people about, you can be in this 1% that's creating content for the whole world to see. So it doesn't matter what you want to get from that. If you want to get paid for views, if you just want to be an influencer and you want to do brand deals and have people follow the lifestyle that you're leading all over the world, or if you have a service or a product that you want to sell and deliver to people, or even if it's just the fact that you want to coach people and tell people and guide people around a certain topic, which is kind of like what I'm doing. If you just want to share with people, these are what these platforms allow you to do. And you can discover the audience that's right for you. But you can't do that if you don't start sharing content, and it won't work unless you continue to share content on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be every single day, but ideally every single week or every 2 weeks, share something online, a piece of content that people engage with, and then over time, you'll start to develop this audience that's following you and engaging with what you've got. Don't worry if it's hard at the beginning. It does take a while to get going, but once you find this momentum and you realize it's something that you need to do, and you get this feeling that you actually have to continue sharing, then you know you're on the right track, and that's how you double down and develop an audience over time, because you're being consistent. You're showing up just like people in relationships, just like people at work. You expect people to turn up if you know they're committed to working on the thing. So I'm showing my commitment to this by turning up on a regular basis. I might be occasionally in your feed. You might get an email from me. I'm just trying to be consistent, because the consistency in life that I want from other people is something that I'm trying to lead with first. I want the network of people that I work with and the network of people that I have as friends to be consistent, to show up and to see the value that I have in me and to appreciate the value that I give to them. But the only way that I can do that is by leading and sharing content first. If I wait for people to reach out for me, if I wait for people to contact me, I'm going to be waiting a long time. I need to lead first by sharing and doing and creating, and then the right audience will find me. And you have to trust the same process for yourself. So this is why I'm turning up. And it's why I want you to subscribe and like and follow this content, because I want you to come back and keep watching this so you get inspired and you find the right way to do this for the thing that you're working on. My passion is to help you sell your passion to the audience that you're looking for. And this is what we do together. We can learn together. We can do it together if we both keep turning up. That's why I'm here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.